Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to yet another video. And today I got something fun for you. And today we're going to be ranking video game controllers on TierMaker. It's been a minute since I've done a TierMaker video. The last one I did was on the Capcom fighting games. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you haven't checked it out already, be sure to go check that out. But without any further ado, we're just going to get started. So it's going to be ranked from D tier all the way to S tier. So I guess I'm gonna kick things off, believe it or not, with my absolute favorite controllers, believe it or not. Like the ones that I can definitively say are easily amongst some of the greatest controllers ever made, right? The only one that I don't see on here for some odd reason is wait a minute, let me look just to make sure that I don't see the DualShock 5 or the DualSense controller. I'm surprised that I don't see it on here. That's kind of odd. Huh. It says add additional images to your tier list. Hang on one second. Sorry about that. I had to go out of my way and personally add the DualSense controller into the tier list. But anyway, let's get to the nitty-gritty. So the ones that I think are literally amongst the best video game controllers ever made. So we're going to start out with the S tier. Starting out with, of course, the original DualShock controller. That control, and in fact, I have it sitting right here as a matter of fact. This controller really pioneered a lot of stuff when it came to the 5th generation of consoles with its amazing and robust design and everything. It's very comfortable to hold. You know what I mean? With the triggers and everything like that, and plus the analog sticks and stuff, and the rumble feature and all that stuff. It is literally a monumental invention, and considering that it is an S tier, I might as well put the DualShock 2 up there, as it's literally the same exact thing. It's just the DualShock 1 and 2 are easily among some of the greatest controllers ever made. They're some of the most iconic controllers ever made, in my opinion. They're super comfortable. They're very, and also if you have a PS1 and a PS2, they're very easily affordable and everything. So I would definitely rank those two as the highest. The other one I would put in the S tier would be the Nintendo GameCube controller. Easily one of the most comfortable controllers ever made. One of the most iconic controllers of all time. So this is a controller design that has gone through so many generations. It even has it even got its own unique one for the Nintendo Switch. Not only for the Switch 2 with the Nintendo Switch Online, but it had its own unique GameCube controller for games like Super Smash Brothers, like specifically Smash Bros Ultimate, or if it was Wii U, Smash 4, and all that stuff, right? But the only thing that I don't like about it is the D-pad. I think the D-pad is really terrible. Like, it's like really tiny and everything. In fact, it's funny that I'm bringing it up because look what's right here. D-pad is really tiny, and I don't like that. That makes it a problem to enjoy fighting games on this thing. So you would have to use like the analog stick most of the time if you're playing something like, say, Capcom versus SNK2 EO, which I'm pretty sure some people probably forgot was on GameCube, right? But otherwise, this controller, it's such an excellent controller, especially playing first-person shooter games on that thing is actually not bad. Because I was playing Time Splitters 2 on it, because I just recently bought it. Time Splitters 2 plays so well on GameCube, especially with the controller and everything. Everything else on it, from Smash Bros. Melee to Mario Party to, F-Zero GX, Resident Evil 4, Beautiful Joe. It's just so many games, you know what I'm saying? Even 007 Everything or Nothing played excellent on the GameCube with the controller and stuff. And for the record, I do think it's an amazing action game for the GameCube, one that I definitely recommend. But my point is, the GameCube controller definitely is one of the all-time greatest controllers. It's definitely up there with the DualShock 1 and 2 as easily as one of the greatest controllers ever made and everything. Now, is there any other game controllers I would put in S tier? Probably I'm proud. If there's one last controller that I would put in S tier, I actually don't think I'm pretty sure someone probably expects me to put the Sega Saturn controller in S tier. That's the Model 2 controller I see. Now, I'm surprised to see that the Model 1 controller isn't on here. But I'm probably gonna go through the trouble and try to find it so that way I can put a ranking. Give me one sec. So I just added the Model 1 controller in there. Now I was thinking, now while I was doing that, a thought occurred to me. I was like, these three controllers, the DualShock 1, 2, and the GameCube controller, are like the only controllers out of every controller on here that I can, honest to God, say are definitely S tier. Control. Actually, if there is one more S tier controller that I would put up there, if there is one more that I would put up there, believe it or not, is the Nintendo Switch Pro controller. I love that controller. I love how it feels. The only thing I don't like about it is the motion control. I mean, the motion control is actually, you know what? I think the motion in that controller is a lot better than how it was with the Wii U and everything. And the fact that not a whole lot of Switch games do that, but you know, there are some games that do have motion controls and stuff like that. Even Zelda also kind of implements some of the motion controls or takes advantage of that feature in the controller and stuff. But I never found it to be annoying or anything like that. I found it quite responsive. You know, it's a very expensive controller, but I think it's amazing. Like, it fits perfectly well in your hands. I like the triggers and everything. I think that's like the last controller that I can consider an S tier controller. I do love the Nintendo Switch Pro controller. So now let's go over the ones that I think are the absolute bottom of the barrel. Absolutely one of the worst controllers ever. I wish there were more controllers on here so that way I could put them on there. So it's like, it's only gave me so much to work with. But if anything, as far as what I would put in D tier, I'm probably gonna put. You see, I really want to put the Joy-Cons honestly on the D tier, but I don't think they're too bad because they are fully functional. But I hate the D-pad. I really hate it. The analog sticks are really tiny. You can easily slip off of them. I probably am going to give it a D tier only because it's just like, it's one of the reasons why if you're going to have a Switch, get it with a Pro controller because the Pro controller is so much better. If I'm being completely honest with you, the only time the Joy-Con is ever like viable is if you're literally playing it on the go, like if you're in a car or something. Then for what it is, it works, but it's definitely not a controller that I would use ideally if I'm gonna game on my Switch. That's why I have a Pro controller in the first place. So I would that's definitely a D tier controller. Another D tier controller that I would put down there, believe it or not, I'm gonna put the original Xbox Duke controller. I hate that thing. It's too big. Like, I do like a decent sized controller, but when it's so big and the way that the buttons are kind of like slanted over a little bit, and then you have like the black and white buttons on the top and everything, just makes it hell on earth to play and everything. It's definitely like. Is definitely oversized, does not feel as comfortable. If anything, I would get the original Xbox S controller, which for the record, I gotta say that controller is definitely way better than the Duke. Although I'm not a big fan of the black and white buttons. I get what they were trying to do. They were trying to be unique from its contemporaries and stuff. But it would have been nice if you had just put on shoulder buttons and stuff. Because that's eventually what what Microsoft did later on with the Xbox anyway. They just straight up gave it shoulder buttons and stuff. They could have done that with the original S, but they didn't. It is definitely way better than the Duke controller. So where would I rank the Xbox S controller? I would probably rank it in B tier because it's way better. It's definitely is definitely the best controller to use for the original Xbox if you own one like I do. In fact, there's a blue S controller sitting on top of it right now. But like I said, I'm not a big fan of the black and white buttons at all. They're good for what they are, but it's definitely not ideal for me anyway. And since we're talking about Xbox right now, I will put the Xbox 360 controller in A tier. This is an excellent controller. Definitely better than the S controller for sure. It feels a lot better on the hands and everything. The way the triggers feel, it's definitely in a much better spot than even the S and the well, the S controller is fine as far as triggers go, but it was like the Duke controller was definitely a problem. But and the fact that it's wireless also, but it does use batteries like AA batteries and stuff, or even a battery pack that you can charge up and stuff, which is fine. But yeah, I would definitely say the 360 controller is definitely one of the best. It's definitely one of the most mimicked and replicated controllers ever made. Like, you know how many people replicate that controller? It's definitely a really, really good controller in my opinion. And that right there looks like the Xbox One controller. It seems to be. It's either Xbox One or Series. It's probably one of the two. It looks more like the Xbox One controller, if anything. The Xbox One controller is basically the same as the Xbox 360, except expanded upon. It also has, I think, I don't remember specifically if it has adaptive triggers like the PS5 controller does, or the DualSense controller rather. But even so, I still think it's a good controller nonetheless. That can, and very similar to the 360, and this is what I love about both controllers, is that they both are interchangeable in the sense that you can run them not only on Xbox but also on PC as well. But I would definitely say that I do like the USB on the Xbox One controller way more than I like the 360. So the 360 controller is still going to stay in the spot in A tier for sure, but I'm definitely going to put the Xbox One above the Xbox 360 controller in A tier, only because of one thing. It's much more versatile and interchangeable as far as switching from Xbox to PC, especially with regards to the type of cord that you use and stuff. It's definitely faster, more responsive data. It's not gonna, like, the wire's not gonna be so weary on you and everything. Especially the Series S controllers, the Series X controller stuff, because it has USB-C, which I would probably put in the same spot, honestly. But yeah, I think the Xbox One controller is definitely a fantastic controller alongside the 360 controller for sure. So next up, I guess we'll put up the PlayStation 4. Actually, we didn't even put the PS3 controller up yet. The 6-axis controller, as it's called. This controller definitely carries over what the last two DualShock controllers were. Although it definitely gets tired by this point. It also uses motion controls as well, although it doesn't feel as good. And the way the triggers feel is a bit weird. I'm not gonna lie. It feels like, I'm not even gonna lie, the triggers on it is pretty weird. It's still a decent controller nonetheless, but I just don't like the triggers, and it's definitely essentially the same controller. Then again, if it's not broken, don't fix it. But it doesn't, aesthetic wise, it definitely doesn't bring anything unique. It's not innovative or anything like that, besides being wireless and everything like that. So it's definitely have some innovation, but not enough specifically to wow me. So I'll put it in, let's see, where should I put it? I'm debating on whether if I should put it in B tier or A tier, because I still like the controller, but it doesn't do anything new. I feel like putting it in B tier would be a little bit too harsh, honestly. But I'll give it a high B. I'll give it a B. It's a good controller, but you know, it doesn't do anything fresh and new and innovative. It's more or less the same as these two. You know what I'm saying? But otherwise, you know what? I'll give it a low A tier, if anything. I'll definitely give it a low A tier. I gotta be very consistent, because I do love the DualShock, but it's only going down to A tier because while the controller is good and all, it's like the triggers are not very good. It's a wireless controller, which is amazing, but it doesn't do anything new or innovative or anything like that. That's just me. Now, the DualShock 4 controller, this one was definitely an improvement on the DualShock 3. It's got better thumbsticks. The triggers feel way better, and of course, it has the touchpad. It also does motion controls a lot better than the DualShock 3. I'll give, you know what? I'll give the 6-axis controller a very high B. All right? But what I would do with the PS4 controller is that I would definitely put it in the A tier. The only reason why I'm not putting it above the Xbox controllers, honestly, is because I think the ones on the Xbox, as far as the triggers do, feel better than the DualShock 4 does. But even so, the DualShock 4 triggers feel way, way better than the 6-axis controller does. But I remember when I first felt that thing, it was a good controller to hold. It was really fun. Now, I realized I glanced over the original PlayStation controller, the one without the analog sticks and stuff. I will very quickly give this controller, I'll definitely give this controller a B. Because I still have a massive soft spot for that controller. Honestly, I still have a massive soft spot for that controller. Obviously the DualShock controllers are way better, but honestly, I would, it's simple, but you know what? I don't know if I would give it a B. I would probably put it in C. Because it's still a good controller. Keep in mind, C is still considered really good. So don't look at this and think, oh, that's horrible. Because I still really like this controller, but it's like the other controllers above it are definitely way better. But I still like my original PlayStation controller without the thumbsticks, because it still feels really good, honestly. But, because it had so many other controllers that surpassed it functionally, it's going to get a C. But I still really like it. Now the DualShock 5, or DualSense controller as it's called, which is exactly what this controller is plugged in right now, which is what this is. I think this is way better than the DualShock 4. Way better. It does have the same triggers and stuff, but this is the one thing that I love about it, is the adaptive triggers. Like, whichever game you play, the triggers will react accordingly. Like, it'll sometimes be harder to press, or it'll be easier to press. Or, like, it'll make you feel like that you're firing a gun or something like that. It also has a built-in microphone on it as well. It does have a built-in microphone, which the DualShock 4 didn't have. The microphone on it isn't exactly the best, but it's great that we even have it in the first place. I think motion controls and the fact that it uses USB-C is another innovation about it. I think the DualSense controller is amazing, and it definitely feels extremely comfortable. My only biggest gripe with this controller is that it's extremely expensive. Like, it's a $70 controller. That's my only issue with it. Then again, so is the Pro controller as well. But I think that controller dropped in price. Like, now it's down to 60, which even then is still expensive, but whatever. So DualSense, I will give it an A tier. It's definitely an A tier controller for sure. Now, we got the Nintendo controller. Let's see. Well, we was talking about Sega Saturn, but then I kind of drifted off. So we'll save Nintendo for last. Let me do the Sega consoles first. I'm surprised that the Master System controller isn't on here. Why would they put the NES controller on here, but they would not put the Master System controller on here? Did someone not realize that the Master System was a thing? Like, it was the main competitor to the NES. So I put in the Sega Master System controller, and what we're going to do with that one is that I'm probably going to rank that. I'm going to sound a little harsh for saying this. I'm probably going to give it a C tier, only because, first of all, it doesn't have a pause button or select button on it, which the NES controller had. And the D-pad's a bit weird. It's a decent controller. It's decent at best. That's the best thing. That's about the best compliment I can give to it. Not bad, but not without its flaws. The next one is the Genesis controller. That's the original 3-button controller. There did come a 6-button controller, which was a little bit smaller, but the 3-button controller, that one I think is a good controller. The only thing that it is kind of an odd shape though, that the later Sega controllers were kind of adopt from, most notably the Sega Saturn. The Sega Saturn controller was essentially an extension of the Genesis controllers, but we'll get to that in a second. But as far as where I would rank the Sega Genesis controller, and you know what? I am gonna keep it fair, only because I'm pretty sure some people will want to see the secondary model Genesis controller get ranked too. So hang on. So as far as where I would rank the Genesis controller, I don't think it's a very comfortable controller to hold. It's an iconic controller nonetheless, but I don't think it's exactly that impressive to hold. And if you're playing fighting games like Street Fighter and stuff like that, which requires 6 buttons, that can be a problem. Not gonna lie. So I would probably give the original Genesis controller a C tier. A very high C tier. Decent controller, but definitely not ideal. Especially, like I said, for certain games, you definitely need... And the fact that you have to hop your thumb back and forth and stuff, which is annoying. It's the exact same problem I have with the other Saturn controllers and stuff. They're still great controllers nonetheless. Now, the 6-button controller is essentially the same as the Model 3, except it's a little bit smaller and adds 3 more buttons and stuff, which makes it easier to play fighting games and stuff like that. And for that reason, I'm going to put it in the B tier, because it's definitely way better than the Model 1 controller for sure, in terms of its functionality and stuff. Well, the functionality-wise, you'll definitely have the 6-button controller last longer than the 3-button controller, honestly, because after a while, the 3-button ones do kind of get a bit weary. I don't know if it has something to do with the electrical wiring or something like that, but it's something that I've noticed. Or it might be a personal experience, so I don't know. Even so, the Model 1 controller is still a decent controller, but the 6-button one is definitely better. Sure. Now, the Model 1 Sega Saturn controller, I am not a big fan of this controller at all. I'm not a big fan of this controller at all. I'm gonna be real. It's just my opinion. I know that there are going to be disagreements, which is one of the things I love about making tier maker videos, is that, you know, there's going to be people who will disagree with me, and I like that, and I'd like you to give your specific reasons for why you disagree with me, so that I can understand your perspective. But for right now, I'm gonna put it down. And you know, I don't know if I would give it a D tier. I feel like that's too harsh, because it's like, it's very responsive, but I'm not a big fan of the D-pad. I'm not a big fan of how you hold it in the control. It's like, it's not very comfortable to hold, honestly. But to say that it's one of the worst controllers ever made, I don't think it is. I would probably put it in C tier, honestly. Actually, I'll put it above the Master System controller, only because it's definitely way better, but not without its flaws. So it's an okay controller. I just don't think it's good at all. However, I do think that the Model 2 controller is way better. So much so I would give it an A tier, because that controller, the way it feels, I mean, the only thing I don't like about it is that it's small for my hands, but for fighting games or arcade titles, stuff like that, it feels way better to hold and stuff. The D-pad feels way better, which again, that's why I think it's literally one of the best fight pads to use for sure. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be some fighting game fanatics who will agree with me on that. And if you don't, that's also totally fine. Now the Dreamcast controller, the Sega Dreamcast controller, very awkward controller to handle, but I love the VMU and everything. The D-pad is definitely way better than the GameCube one, which is funny, but the analog stick, though, it easily slips off. It's a very bulky controller, too. That being said, I would say the Dreamcast controller I would probably give it I'll give it a high C, because it's like good control. It's an okay controller, but the thumb stick, easily you could slip off of that because it doesn't really have any rubber or anything on it to keep your finger from slipping off. D-pad's good and all, but you know the way it holds, it's like it's so bulky and stuff, and the way you press the triggers and stuff. I get what they were trying to do because they wanted to make sure that you could fit 2 VMUs in it, which that right there I think is an innovation. So it's an innovative controller. I just don't think it was executed too well as far as how it feels in your hands and stuff. I'm pretty sure there are some people who are gonna beg to differ and say, or you know, they're gonna beg to differ and say, oh, you know, the Dreamcast controller easily is foldable. Like it's a very comfortable controller, which you're fine if that's your, and that's fine if that's your opinion. But you know, for me, I just don't like the way it holds. Not the biggest fan of that, but otherwise, it's still a good controller nonetheless. So last 5, and these are Nintendo controllers. For starting off with the NES controller. The NES controller, very iconic gamepad. It has a start and a select and everything. And I like how the B and A buttons are right next to each other, which that's the same thing that the Master System has as well. But it also has a much better D-pad. So for that reason, it's definitely going in the B tier. I think it's a great controller. I do think there are other controllers that are better than it, but besides that, it deserves the praise that it gets. Iconic controller. Super Nintendo controller. I love this thing. Really, I love this thing. The only thing that holds it back is that it's a pretty small controller, but you know, it's got a great D-pad. It's got 4 buttons, and then you have L and R and everything. It's got a dog bone shape that fits perfectly in your hands. Super Nintendo controller is awesome. It's definitely going in the A tier. It's definitely an A tier controller. The Nintendo 64 controller, I don't think that controller is as bad as some people make it out to be, but I also don't think that it's an A tier or an S tier. Definitely not an S tier controller at all. It's gotta be either a B or a C, because it's definitely not a terrible controller. So either a B or a really high C is where I'm going for, because I don't think this controller is too comfortable to hold. But I do like the joystick and stuff. It can be a little bit, sometimes it can be a little bit hard to kind of slowly adjust, especially if you're playing a game like Star Fox or whatever, or Super Mario 64 or Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and stuff. And for Killer Instinct Gold, this is definitely not the ideal controller to play Killer Instinct Gold. And you know, I definitely like my fighting games. So I would say the N64 controller is a C tier controller. Not bad, but definitely not comfortable, and not ideal for every game on the platform, especially if it's a fighting game. The Wiimote and the Nunchuck. Oh my god. Where would I put this? I actually don't know. That's the hard part. Because it's like, I don't think it's terrible, but really my only issue with it is that it's gimmicky and sometimes the motion may not respond, but it's definitely a better motion controller than most other motion controllers of the time. It's definitely not a D tier controller at all. I would... Where would I put it? I'll give it a... I would probably give it a high C. I would give it a high C. It's not a bad controller. Definitely not as bad as some people make it out to be. Just very gimmicky. I'll probably put it in the middle, actually. Definitely above the N64 controller. Definitely. Anyway, so the Wiimote, it's like, I like how it feels in your hands, especially with the nunchucks and all. And you have like the wristband so that when you're, God forbid, if it falls out of your hands and stuff like that, it won't flunge at your TV and then you risk breaking it and stuff. But it was just so gimmicky to me. Like, sitting down and playing with the controller is more than enough for me. I don't have to do all that motion shit. The only thing that was fun about using it was for the Wii Sports titles, honestly. But that's about it. I don't think that controller is ideal for any other games on the Wii that can literally use a normal controller if they wanted to. Sorry about that. That was rude. Final one, the Wii U gamepad. Unique idea, but not executed too well. The Wii U also had a unique controller. It was kind of similar to the Xbox controller. That one I never used, unfortunately. But had I did, it would probably be an A tier controller or at the lowest B tier. Because it kind of looked like an Xbox controller, but it wasn't. And it was for the Wii U. It was the Wii U gamepad, not this gamepad, but it was like a whole separate controller. It was the Wii U Pro controller, and it was shaped exactly like an Xbox controller, almost. But it was like, I think that controller, honestly, would be. If I had that controller, I probably would have liked it, but I can't put it on here because I've never used it before. The gamepad, on the other hand, it's like you can game with the screen, but it's like it's so wide. And then when you're looking down like this, when you can just look at it up at the TV, it's just like I would give it a D tier. It's so forgettable to me. I'm not a big fan of that controller. There's only 3 controllers that got D tier. Most of them were either average or above average to awesome to superb. So there you have it, my tier list of video game controllers. So DualShock 1, 2, 3, DualShock 1 and 2, the GameCube controller, and the Nintendo Switch Pro controller are both S tier controllers in my opinion. The A tier controllers are the Xbox One, Xbox 360, DualSense, DualShock 4, Model 2 Sega Saturn controller, and the Super Nintendo controller. B tier, DualShock 3, otherwise known as 6-axis, Xbox S controller, the original Xbox S controller, the Sega Genesis 6-button, and the original NES controller. C tier, Sega Dreamcast controller, the original PlayStation controller, Model 1 Genesis controller, Wiimote and Nunchuck, Nintendo 64 controller, Model 1 Sega Saturn controller, and Sega Master System controller. D tier, the Wii U gamepad, the Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons, and the original Xbox Duke controller. So there you have it. That's my tier list. Do you agree with this tier list? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.